Okay, so for the purposes of these videos, you are student E. Just keep it anonymous. No one's going to look at these other than you, and there's no discussion of grades in it, but nevertheless, you're just identified as student E throughout. We'll start with the introduction. I don't see a title, or on any of the later submissions needs a title. You don't have to put the year before 2000. I wouldn't say legalized, I would just say it became legal, sex work became legal in Amsterdam. Then you say due to the legalization. No, just too many words. Amsterdam was seen as being progressive, or you could merge that into one sentence, after sex work, after the legalization of sex work in 2000, Amsterdam was seen as being progressive, something like that. And that's a quote you're taking from Wonders. To mark a quote like that, and I think you mean a quote, although you've got only a single mark on each side. It's double marks for quotations on each side. In terms of, you haven't introduced any of the authors yet, which is fine. When you put the reference in, you don't use both authors. When it's a paper by more than one author, you just use the lead author's name. The lead author is the first author listed. So that's just Wonders, page 10, and use the letter P at the start of that. You then, I think you use something like however. I've deleted it now. I'd have to go back and look at your email. But I would just, there was some words there. I just reduced it down to still, comma. You don't even need the comma. So just still, legalization of prostitution has resulted in regulations that have various drawbacks. Now, that include migration control. I'm wondering if you mean immigration. Migration, this is my understanding anyway, to check me up on this. Migration is within, well, it's when a person moves somewhere with the intent of moving back, moving away. Just as animals migrate, they go somewhere, but they always plan to come back. Migrating species don't go and stay, they go and come back. Migration generally, although people, countries, may not want people coming in without permission, that they're leaving makes it less of a problem. It's people who come in and stay, immigrants. If you leave somewhere, you're an emigrant. You emigrate with an E from somewhere to somewhere if you're not coming back. If you go somewhere to that place, you're an immigrant with an I, and that causes much more concern when it's not legal. So I'm not really sure if you mean migration there or immigration. In any event, I'm also curious as to why control over these things is a problem. You seem to be saying that this is a problem. Sovereign nations control their borders. It's part of what they do. If you don't control your borders, you're not a discrete nation. There seems to be, I'm seeing it more and more from students, sort of a blanket renouncement of the idea that there should be any form of control of borders, and this is not consistent with how countries govern themselves, so I'm curious about where that's coming from. In any event, that's not the issue here today. Punishing illegal sex workers, you need a comma there. You have to start using this Oxford comma thing. Garner has a good entry on commas in the punctuation section that starts around page 749. I encourage you to look at that, but when you have a series of things, commas after each, not when you have and, you need a comma there. Newspapers don't necessarily do that. Journalism has its own standard, but for academic writing like this, we use the Oxford comma, it's called. Red light now in this particular draft, you seem to be hyphenating red light, which I don't think you were doing later. And then on things like that, I mean, you go by what the majority of your authors do. I'm trying to look through some other yeah, I guess you've been consistent. I mean, I see red light consistently here. It looks like it's hyphenated, so maybe I just had a brain cramp on that. If it's hyphenated, it's hyphenated. I'm fine with that. I don't have a standard for that. And anyway, but district, we talked, I think, or didn't talk. I know I sent you back an edit at some point about whether or not district is capital D. I see it as a capital D situation. It's a proper noun. It's a place. So be consistent about that. At the end of the first paragraph, also, you have you're attempting to use some dashes there. Use an end dash properly. Again, you can look that up in Garner in the punctuation section. To make it on a computer using a word processing program, you take the last, you type the word, you type a space. Well, it depends if you're using M dash or N dash. I guess you want to use an M dash here. So you type the last word, you type the word, 2 dashes, and the next word without a space. Everything's run together. And then after you space off the last word, you get a longer dash. That's an M dash. If you want to use an N dash, like between 2 dates, put in the first date, space, dash, dash, space, next date, 1911 to 1917, right? 1911, space, dash, dash, space, 1917. When you space off 1917, you'll get a slightly shorter dash, but longer than a simple dash. That's called an N dash. So you need to get those straight. Moving on, second paragraph. The link between prostitution and tourism is important, particularly in the red light district of Amsterdam, because it draws attention to the regulation. I put in it draws attention to. I think it makes it a crisper, simpler sentence. And also at the end of the sentence, you bring in W and M. You designate them as W and M, but you haven't introduced them to the author yet, so you have to actually write their names out. The first time you introduce the author, or if it's more than one author, you write their names out. You can then say, from now on, in parentheses, and then you don't have to do that again in later sections. But in this case, I'm going to leave their names full. I'm going to use their full names in the literature review section. Then after that, I'm going to start compressing the names down. You have a habit, I see, of using the names of articles over and over and over again, particularly your analysis and synthesis. There was just a lot of reuse of article names. Generally in academic writing, we don't use article names. I give you permission to use it once and once only in the literature review. That's fine here. There's actually some faculty at UMass who don't like that I let you do that, but I'm okay with it because this is not a purely academic article. It's got an academic flavor to it, but I think in anything, when you're going for more than one page about a particular article, it is okay to use the name one time, but you don't keep on using it and using it and using it. You designate things by the author names. So I've struck all of those out. I guess there's the question again, you have to keep capitalizing the D. In district, after I've taken all those article names out, that is where we're at. I'm going to move on to the next video and look at the literature review that you did.